This wasn't the video I planned to make. In fact, if you told me a week ago I'd be defending the Disney remake of Snow White, I'd have laughed. I would have rejected the idea politely and gone to do something more reasonable, like wireless bungee jumping. Everyone hates this movie. Everybody hated it even before it came out, before anyone saw it. It became a cultural punchline, like the Cats trailer. And I get why. Disney made mistakes, plenty of them. The movie cost too much, the CGI is over the top, and the PR disaster didn't help. But behind the noise, the movie is trying to tell a real story. In this day and age, we've stopped judging stories based on the story itself. Now, we judge them based on the headlines, the controversies, or our fears of an ideological agenda. We bash movies like Snow White for changing the classics, but we also bash movies like Lion King that sticks too close to them. So what do we really want? All I wanted for my wife, my 9-year-old daughter, and myself is to watch a movie as a family. And we liked it. 3 people, 2 different generations, 0 expectations, 1 unexpected outcome. We'll start with the obvious. This was a PR disaster wrapped in a fantasy movie. Smug Rachel Zegler spoke her mind, and the internet responded with vengeance. The comment sections caught fire, cultural warriors circled, and everyone had a take. Before a single frame was seen, the 2025 Snow White was no longer a movie. It was a symbol, a pawn, a punchline. According to first box office numbers, once the actual film arrived, very few people were excited to watch it. They didn't feel they need to. They already made up their minds. But none of the PR issues is a storytelling issue. It's a marketing incompetence. Rachel Zegler is actually a gifted performer, and her low Farquaad haircut received an in-store explanation. Was she miscast? Maybe. Was she controversial? Sure. But in the movie, she works. She starts the story wide-eyed, naive, idealistic, and as the story unfolds, she sees how broken the world can be and yet decides to stay kind. That's not weakness or wokeness. That's character. And for our daughter, sitting with us in the theater, that mattered. Snow White received more agency, her prince received more screen time, the queen argued for more than just her vanity, and even some of the dwarfs go through a character arc. Yes, the dwarves everyone loved to mock. They were supposed to be replaced by a group of bandits until the internet got mad and Disney panicked and added some CGI dwarves back in. The behind-the-scenes story was messy, confused, and kind of absurd. But here's the thing. Somewhere in all that chaos, something interesting happened. In the film, Snow White doesn't choose between bandits and dwarves. She unites them. And that foreshadows the whole point of the movie. This version of Snow White doesn't just survive the queen. She challenges the division and isolation the queen represents. She takes 2 divided, distrustful groups and brings them together. If you ask me, the ridiculous Peter Dinklage controversy resulted in a happy accident. See, Disney set out to make another big-budget live-action adaptation of a classic, but instead made a movie that is inspired by the original classic. It's not even a reimagining, it is a different branch of the tree. The tone is different, the message is different. 2025 Snow White is not trying to replace the 1937 film despite the words of Rachel Zegler. It's building a story parallel to it. And once I let go of what I thought the movie should be, I started to enjoy the story for what it is. Instead of Snow White, Disney accidentally made Snow White meets Robin Hood. The queen isn't just evil, she is oppressive, paranoid, ruling with fear. Snow White isn't just a dreamer, she is a symbol of hope, and the people she meets, whether dwarfs or bandits, become more than just a comic relief. they become the beginning of a resistance. It's a movie about kindness, sure, but also about coalition, about uniting people who've been told they don't belong. Snow White isn't the hero of this movie because she is the strongest girl boss around. Far from it. She is the hero because she is the one who finds a way to bring others together. And here's what surprised me the most. The message landed. And maybe the problem isn't the movie itself. Maybe it is the memory of a movie that hinders our enjoyment. Because let's not forget, the original Disney Snow White was already a massive rewrite of the original German tale. In the Brothers Grimm version, the queen tries to kill Snow White 3 times. The prince doesn't kiss Snow White. The prince buys her corpse. And the queen dies dancing in red-hot iron shoes. Walt Disney changed all that in 1937 to fit modern audiences, and no one protested about ruined childhoods. So what changed? Maybe it's not about the story. Maybe we've gotten used to judging movies by their marketing, instead of by their own merit. Is the new Snow White movie perfect? Not even close. It's clumsy, overproduced, and occasionally ridiculous. But it has something that's increasingly rare in blockbuster cinema, a clear moral center. It says, people who are different can still stand together, that cruelty can be challenged with compassion, and that kindness isn't a weakness, it's power. And for me, for my wife, and for my daughter, that story was worth hearing. Because that's what stories do, they evolve. They reflect the values and fears of the times in which they are told. And whether you love or hate this new version, it's a part of that long-living tradition of storytelling. But I believe that you will enjoy this movie if you will be willing to set aside what the internet says and see the movie for what it is. Don't forget to subscribe for more.